Hey everybody, this is Brandon from Sparksmith helping you see and be seen. Today we are going to take out these Alpharex headlights and replace them with our new animated startup projector style headlights. So changing up the look of the truck a little bit, we've got, you'll see when we light them up, this white bar on each one does like a little startup animation, also has an amber sequential turn signal. And what I'm hoping for is to get something that has a closer match to the color of the grille bar. I think it's because I got the smoked lens on these Alpharex, which is why there's such a big color difference between the two. So we're gonna see if we can get these to match a little bit better. And we'll do a side-by-side comparison to check out the output of our projector headlights versus the Alpharex. Okay, so step one, if you still got the plastic over here, you'll pull that off and get your grille off. If you're like me, be really careful because you've done it a zillion times. The grille's about to fall apart. If you do have a grill bar, be sure and unplug that before you take the grill off. If it's from us, you'll have just two simple little plugs here. You can disconnect those. Whatever headlight style you're running, just unplug whatever you got in there. So if you ever have a problem with your parking lot assemblies popping out, one thing you can do is drill a hole right here and just find yourself a long, like number 10 or number 8 screw and run it down through there. And what it'll do is it will, on the inside of this, it will actually go in between these two pieces and force that to expand, and it'll make it to where it'll get more secure in there. Okay, so I'm going to be installing the brightest version on my truck, but if you, whichever version you choose, if you use the standard version or the reflector or whatever, the standard ones are going to come with our standard bulbs in either white, amber, or switchback, depending on which one you want. And so those obviously will just install like a regular bulb. One of them will plug into this little jumper that is, so this wiring goes to each headlight to control the running light function. And so you'll plug this bulb in, or if you're doing brighter version, we'll be using our signature series bulbs, which are, as I like to say, obnoxiously bright. Now, if you're doing these, be sure and use, and I've said this before, the included dielectric grease. And you want to take your factory socket, you can see this one's already been greased because I've done this a bazillion times, but you want to fill that cavity with grease. And if you've got these signature series bulbs, you want to fill that cavity with grease. That's about the right amount. And then when you plug this in, you want to feel like it, you want to kind of feel it click into place. And give it a little tug test to make sure it doesn't just pop right back out. And then this will simply fit right into the back there. Rotation doesn't really matter unless you're just OCD about it, which I like to make sure mine are both rotated the same way, however you want to do it. And you'll bring this whole assembly and you want to find a good home for this guy, this big chunky brick. Now your truck probably won't have all this extra wiring. I've done so much experimental stuff with this truck, it's not even funny. But grab some rubbing alcohol and find a home you can like maybe stick it right here. If you can find a spot, or you could even just tuck it back in behind this plastic bracket that the headlights mount to. But just find a safe home for this where it's not going to move and shake around. Keep it away from anything that moves and anything that gets hot. But you'll take this jumper that comes off of this brick and make sure that the black wire on this plug lines up with the black wire on your factory socket. And again, kind of like the Signature Series bulb, when you put it in, to make sure you feel a nice tight little click to put that in place. Now on mine, we're using a switchback in both of them because this has the double shot feature to it, where both lower assemblies will do both park and running light and turn signal. So once you get the bulbs installed, get them plugged in, and you found a nice neat home for these, you can go ahead and plug. So the wire coming off of this brick has a splitter, and they're exactly the same. You can put either one to either light. One goes to the parking light, one goes to the headlight. And that guy just plugs right in. I'm gonna tidy all this up in just a sec. A couple of things to note on these. One, if you've got the Signature Series bulbs, your factory sockets, do the best you can to make sure that once you put this stuff in here, that the factory socket is actually facing down. That will help prevent water from pooling up inside this thing, because once water gets in there, it's going to corrode those pins. You're going to have all kinds of issues. So these sockets, you want to make sure that they are facing down so that if they get wet, the water has somewhere to go besides just sitting in there and causing all kinds of rust and corrosion. Another thing to note, these headlights come with replacement gaskets for your parking lights. So each assembly will get the two for the park and daytime running light and the one for the side marker. So these will just replace the factory gaskets on your factory sockets to give you a nice tight seal and help prevent any moisture from getting into these lower parking assemblies. Okay, before we go any further, I've got the one parking assembly in, and I've got it plugged into the running light of the headlight. I'm going to turn these on real quick and just make sure everything's working correctly. So on the headlights, if you get the projector version with the upgraded HID kit, it will come with an NHK 55 watt ballast. Kind of like the driver, you'll just find a home for this. Maybe grab some self-drilling screws or zip ties or whatever. Find a safe place for this guy to live. I'll probably end up putting mine kind of back where this old ballast is. And then this plug will go to your factory low beam, which I can't find. So I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but on this ballast, the input plug is a positive and negative. Make sure that that negative lines up with the black wire on your factory plug. It may be that when you do that, the retaining clip is opposite of this little notch here. That's okay. Just make sure it's a nice snug fit. If you want, you can run some tape around it or something like that to try and help keep it plugged in. But the important part is to make sure that this black wire lines up with that negative terminal. Just like on the low beam for the ballast, you want to make sure that your high beam, again, that negative mark needs to line up with the black wire. Just click that guy in. Okay, one thing to note on these, because it's such a tight fit back here, it's easier to maybe just show you on this than it is on the truck. Your factory plastic for the brackets that hold the headlights are going to have to be trimmed. So the LED, or the fan for the LED on the high beam, is going to be a pretty snug fit. When you go to put it in, that fan is going to end up sitting basically right beside this support. So we're actually going to have to trim even a little further, but it's going to come right up against the actual aluminum part. So all the plastic that's there, you're gonna trim all that away right up flush with this. On the low beam part, you can see from the factory, the opening came over and basically went straight across like this. So you have to trim all the way up again to where the aluminum is and kind of up and across. So take out that much there, and you're gonna wanna take out kind of this chunk here so that you've got room for this rubber cap and for this fan to fit. Make sure they work correctly, then we'll have a little output comparison versus the Alpha Rex.